Hi everyone, I just thought I would do a little review of Scottie Scheffler's golf swing. Probably, well, no, he is the hottest guy on tour right now. Just coming off the back of his British Open win. And I thought this would be really cool to break down his swing because I know he does a couple of things in his swing that kind of match up. And I know there's a lot of things flying around the internet about the steepness of his shaft, and that a lot of golfers out there are trying to get more shallow. And I thought it'd be interesting to understand, if Scottie is that steep, why doesn't he smash the club into the ground or hit these big slices like a lot of the amateurs do? So let's dig in. And this swing on the left is from the Scottish Open the week before, and the swing on the right is from, I think, 2024, which is when he won the gold medal. So both very good swings to look at. Now, from a setup point of view, I think he has a really nice setup. If we draw a line down from his armpits, we'll tend to see that his armpit line sits just in front of his knees, over the balls of his feet, and I think this is a really nice balanced position. Another way that you could look at this is if I draw a line down his butt here and one through the head, you'll notice that it's pretty even in the middle there. So I think for a lot of guys that get too far on the toes, you might see the headline more here and not as even lines there. So I think that's a really nice position to start from. And on the left hand side, unsure on what shot he's trying to hit, very likely trying to hit something slightly higher based on the ball position being slightly more up on the stance, and his stance looks a little wider. Okay, so something to bear in mind there. But starting over here on the right, what we'll start to see is he takes the club a little bit on the outside, moving the hands away from him, a nice fade bias pattern there. And I actually saw a swing of his recently where he is actually keeping the shaft or the face a little bit more shut to the shaft. So what I mean by that is, as he starts to work back here, it is more common of late to see this club face a little bit more turned inwards, like so. Okay, so I've seen that in some of the later swings, and how he does that is he keeps his right arm a little bit more internal. So what I mean by that is his right arm stays a little bit more above his left on the way back. Now, that's going to keep his arm a bit more turned in, keep the face a little stronger, but it is a key piece to why you often see Scottie get his arm a little flary, the club across the line. And I know it doesn't look across the line here, but as we all know, he can get it a little bit more there of late. So something to consider there. Now, into his backswing, if I just box him in from the hip line, we'll start to see Scottie move off the golf ball slightly. And again, another trait of a lot of the longest hitters, they will move off the ball slightly, but they don't stay off the ball. They'll actually start recentering pretty early in the swing. So here we can see Scottie's got straight back into the center of the box, okay? And then the signature Scottie slide, where he's pushing forward so much in his hips, getting his hips way ahead of his chest all the way into transition. Now, that's actually a key move that I want to touch base on, and this is where the shallowing piece comes from. So we'll notice here that as Scottie starts his downswing, again, we'll notice that his hands aren't as inwards as some players can get them. So Rory McIlroy being a key player that I think of there, when his arm is a little bit more in and across him, whereas Scottie's arms are a little bit more out in front of him, which then puts the shaft angle a lot more through his shoulder. Now, typically when we see some amateurs do this, they'll put the shaft through the shoulder and keep rotating, spinning, turning the hips, which then leads the club to keep coming out in front of them. But what you'll notice is as Scottie gets down, he's half a frame out here, but as he gets down to kind of shaft parallel P6, we would likely see the club in line with his hands. Now, the piece that allows him to do that is this slide. The fact that he's sliding, not opening up his hips, allows the body to stay, or certainly the legs stay a little bit more shut for longer, which then keeps the club a little bit more behind him. Now, all the time, Scottie is sliding. he's tilting his body to the right, which is landing the golf club a little bit more shallow. Of course, if he comes down this steep and he didn't have that slide, and let's say his chest was a little bit more on top of his hips, he would probably hit some really steep shots, possibly some drags or some ones that probably over curved. So there's something to consider there. Now, the other piece that I just wanted to highlight is, if I draw a line up Scottie's legs just here, I think what's an interesting trait and something I like to see from my players as well is, as he starts, you'll see that's his knee flex there. Actually, I'm just going to move that line fractionally. But as he starts to move down, you'll notice his right knee never works outside of its original setup position. So there's the setup position, and his right knee regains flex, but it doesn't actually pass its original position, meaning no thrust. The hip joint hasn't actually shifted towards the golf ball. He's begun to shift across and rotate inside of that. So you can still see here he's rotating nicely without twisting his hips forward. And again, another trait that we'd see from a lot of players is, as they move into the downswing to engage and have a little bit more hip clearance, you'll often see them twist their hips and get their hips closer to the target. So I think that's a really nice checkpoint as well, that his knees never go past its original start position, and he gets some very neat knees through the golf ball. So there's a quick analysis of Scottie. Not the typical talking about his arm structure or his funky footwork, but actually understanding what makes this golf swing work. Why does he hit the golf ball so well? Why can he shape it both left and right? Well, for me, like I said, not only does he come down fractionally steep on 2D there, but because of the amount of side bend, it all blends together really, really nicely. So I'm hoping that makes some sense. If you do have any questions, just pop them below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks, and I'll see you all soon.